This is a shir on Likutei Sichos, Chelek, Chavav, book 26, the Parsha Tetzaveh, and Zayin Adar, the 7th of Adar. 7th of Adar is the day of passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, and most years it comes in proximity to Parshas Tetzaveh. And as it says in Sfarim, it says in Sfarim that this is a allusion to the fact that in this Parsha, Parshas Tetzaveh, it's the only Parsha in the Torah, ever since Moshe Rabbeinu's birth is described in the Torah, all the way till the Mishnah Torah, all the way till Devarim, that Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not mentioned explicitly. Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not here. So it's seemingly not understood. In Parshas Tetzaveh, not just. So in other words, this is the day of passing of Moshe Rabbeinu is alluded to in the Parsha that omits mentioning Moshe Rabbeinu by name. But we have to understand, because although the name of Moshe is not there explicitly, but there's many psukim in the Torah this week in Parshas Tetzaveh which speak about Moshe. The beginning of the Parsha is Va'ata Tetzaveh, and you, referring to Moshe Rabbeinu, shall instruct. Furthermore, not mentioning Moshe Rabbeinu is opposite the concept that we attribute to the passing of tzaddikim. When a tzaddik becomes nistalik, when a tzaddik elevates, departs from this world, it doesn't affect his name, doesn't affect his activities that he did. Those things remain. The name of the tzaddik, the reputation, the activities, those things remain forever. The only thing it affects is that his body is no longer here. So how do we say that when the Torah wants to allude to the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, it omits mentioning his name? He is so much present. If anything, his name is still here. His reputation is still here. And additionally, in the Parsha itself, the way Moshe Rabbeinu was addressed, the way Moshe Rabbeinu was referred to, is even stronger than usual, because it speaks in a direct pronoun. It says, Tetzaveh, you, speaks in second person. You shall make, you shall take, you shall do. Whereas in many other psukim in the Torah where Moshe Rabbeinu was addressed, it's in third person. Hashem spoke to Moshe, and so on. Here, it's literally speaking to him in his presence. So, in a way, he's found even stronger here. In other words, there's two questions here. There's, first of all, if you want to say that Moshe Rabbeinu's presence is not here, why would you do it by omitting his name? His name and reputation are still very much here. Moreover, if you want to talk about Moshe Rabbeinu's not being here, as being alluded to in the Parsha, the way he is discussed is even stronger than usual. So it's very much that he is here. Paragraph 2. We can say the explanation is, the Zohar says that tzadika dispater, tzaddik that passes away, is to be found in all the worlds more than in his lifetime. In other words, that the tzaddik is to be found after his passing in all worlds, in this world as well, more than during his lifetime. That's the language of the Zohar. Yatir more than in his lifetime. So that means not just an addition. He's more to be found. It's a shalei be'erech edition. It's incomparable the way he's found in the world after his passing as to before his passing. Why is that? This is because, as the Alter Rebbe explains, when the tzaddik lives here on the earth, so the life of the tzaddik is enclosed in a garment, in a vessel, which is his body. And the ability to receive from the neshama of the tzaddik needs to come through the confines, through the limitations of the body and the vessel. And therefore, one can only receive a ha'ara, a shine from the tzaddik, which is not the case after the tzaddik passes away. Then his neshama is no longer enclosed within a vehicle, within a vessel. And therefore, there's a possibility to get from the essential source, the essential ruach of the tzaddik. That's number one. So he's more accessible after passing, more present. Number two, says Alter Rebbe, when a tzaddik passes away, that means that there's become an ascent, an aliyah of ruchoy v'nishmasei, of his spirit and his soul, the Mekar Chaitzvei, to the source from where he is hewn from its source, and also this level of tzaddik in the way he is in its source is to be found even more here than before. So the tzaddik's expression is not limited to being defined or being contained by a body when he passes away. And also the elevation that the tzaddik has from his passing to his source, that elevation, that elevated state is now what manifests down here as well. So it turns out that there's two extremes, there's two aspects to the passing of a tzaddik. On the one hand, it's when the tzaddik passes physically, it means that there's an elevation spiritually. He's going to a much higher level. And on the other hand, the entire essence of the tzaddik is then to be found in a way that is more accessible here, even in this world. So according to this, we'll understand paragraph 3, why the way to express the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu is by omitting his name in Parshas Tetzaveh. When we talk about the name of a person, the name of a person is not his actual essence. The concept of a name is only what we need as a handle for others to be able to call him. The person himself in his essence doesn't need a name. It's not defined by a name. As we see in actuality that the moment a child is born, he joins humanity. However, he doesn't have a name till later on. He's fine. He's a breathing, existing part of humankind without a name as well. The name is an addition once we need to be able to refer to him and reach out to him. However, when you talk about a person, you say you. When you talk directly to a person, then you're talking to the essence of the person, higher than a name. Similarly, when we're talking here about Moshe Rabbeinu, the name Moshe was actually not given to him at birth. The name Moshe was given to him simply in the simple narrative of the pasuk. The name Moshe was given to him by Batya, the daughter of Parai, who drew him out of the water. She said it in Egyptian, Ki min hamayim mishisiu. She drew him out of the water, so she calls him Moshe. But that's not his name that he's at birth. No, that's not the essence of who he is. And therefore, this is the allusion to the passing of Moshe and Parshas Tetzaveh, where Moshe Rabbeinu's name is omitted. The time of the passing of Moshe, he was elevated, as we said, to the essence, which is higher than being defined by his name. Therefore, his name is not mentioned because he passed away this week. And we want to allude to the fact that right now, the level that is prevalent, that is manifest of Moshe is much higher than his name, as it is after Tzaddik's passing. However, he's still very much here. As the Chazal tell us, Afkan, even now after his passing, he's here and he's serving. He's doing what Moshe Rabbeinu does. And on the contrary, now he's here much in a stronger way, as he is in the supernal worlds, in a much more revealed way. He's not limited or bound or confined by his body. And therefore, yes, of course, Moshe Rabbeinu is to be found in Parshas Tetzaveh in a much more direct way, higher than name. It's the manifestation in a limited form, defined by name, which is not there in the Parsha because he's passed away. So now it's Va'atot Tetzaveh, and you, the essence of Moshe, like the Klei Yakar explains this word, Va'atot Tetzaveh, you, and he uses the word Mahu Satz Muscha, your actual essence of Moshe, because we're addressing Moshe the way he is, higher than being limited by a name, which is a handle for others to be able to call him, but it's only a ha'ara, it's only a shine of who he is. This week's parsha, we talk about Moshe after passing. It alludes to Moshe after his passing, and therefore we speak to the essence of Moshe. Paragraph 4, since the name of Moshe is not mentioned in the entire parsha, this tells us that the entire Parshas Tetzaveh is a messenger, so to speak, is teaching us this lesson that Moshe Rabbeinu of passing. So, according to what we know, that the essence of every parsha, the content of every parsha, is alluded to in its name. So we have to say that this concept that Moshe Rabbeinu's passing is expressed in our Seder is expressed in the name of the Seder, which expresses the content of the entire parsha in some way. It encapsulates the content of the parsha. So we could say that there's an allusion in the name of the parsha, Parshas Tetzaveh, that tells us this concept. Now here the Rebbe says, I'm going to introduce the concept of a gematria, that we're going to learn a gematria of the name Tetzaveh, but the Rebbe says you have to be very careful when you talk about gematria. The Balaturim, Galamukis, these are Pirushim that focus very heavily on gematria. But the Rebbe says you have to understand it's not just an open field for anybody to make numerical value associations based on just their own feeling. Every gematria needs to have a source. You see, because when two words have the same numerical value, it doesn't mean that they're essentially bound with each other. When they have a common content, then you can further solidify it. You can point it out and say, you see, it's there also in the gematria that's equivalent. So, for example, you could technically take the numerical value of any single thing. You could take the numerical value of somebody's name, and then today we have on the internet, you can put in the number and say, what else has the gematria of that name? Now, really, in a sense, anything, when you translate numbers, when you translate letters into gematria, into numerical value, it says something. There's some statement that's made by everything in numerology. And therefore, technically, anything that has the same name, you could say that it's connected. But that's not the way that gematria works in Torah. Gematria in Torah works that gematria is expressing something that we know has a connection. It's not just arbitrary. It's not just something that's open for anybody to try and generate. And as we know, also, when the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, when he speaks about gematria, that the gematria of a word speaks about the letters and the powers that are there in this word. And what a gematria, therefore, by definition, will tell you is that anything that has the same gematria as this particular thing has the same amount of koiches, of energies. Its life and vitality is similar because it's expressed by the same numbers. However, it doesn't tell you, it doesn't force you to say that there's some connection between these two things. When you know that there's a connection between the two things, then the gematria is also an illusion, is one of the signs, and shows you how indeed those two things are connected. And that they also have the same amount of koiches, of energy. Numerologically, they're also expressive, identically identifying their particular oires and koiches in that same number expression. So we have to be very careful. You can't just say gematrias are just not something that you can just pull out of your hat. When you see two things that are connected and you find that they're the same gematria, then that will be a further solidification of their connection or a further expression of their connection. Yeah. So in our topic, the gematria of the word Tetzaveh, says the Rebbe, besides for the fact that it's of those gematrias that literally throw themselves in front of your eyes, they're obvious when you look at it. But what I'm going to say, says the Rebbe, is that the gematria of Tetzaveh is based on the content of the word Tetzaveh. So what's the gematria of the word Tetzaveh? The gematria of Tetzaveh is Tov Kuf Aleph, 501. This number 501, we have an expression of the essence that's higher than name. We're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu passing, and his name is not mentioned, yet he is very much present. So we're saying that's consistent with the concept of Istalkus, of passing, where the name is no longer there. In other words, the expression in a limited way is not there, because the expression is much higher, it's from his essence. How does 501 express that concept? So we know that Chazal tell us in the Gemara, or that is quoting here, Kehelas Rabbah, the Medrash, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu went Mahalach Chamesh Meishana, the distance that it would take 500 years to travel, Liknois Leishem, to acquire for himself a name. What does this mean? It means that generally the Seder Ishtalshus, the order of creation of the world in its fully extrapolated way, is 500. That's the Ishtalshus. So through going 500 years, Hashem now comes to what he says, to acquire for himself a name. The revelation, after diminishing 500 years from Hashem's essence, so to speak, now we have a diminishment enough that can be called acquiring a name. It's a name. And remember, we said a name is a very modified, a very weak emanation from him. That's after 500 levels, after the full extrapolation of the Seder Shtalshus. And the number of 501, one more than 500, that refers to something that's higher than the entire system of Ishtalshus, Yechidei Shel, the one of the world. In other words, the etzem that's higher than this whole extrapolation of 500, of the diminishments, of the tzimtzumim, of the Ishtalshus, which ends up with shame, with a lower level of emanation of light, which is called name, from which Hashem can create a world. Above that system of 500 of Ishtalshus is Hashem, is Echad, which refers to the essence above the Ishtalshus. We could say also, therefore, says the Rebbe, that this is also the connection between the what is brought in Sfarim, that the gematria of 501 is also Osher. It's a very simple gematria, Osher. Aleph Shin Reish. Shin is 300, Reish is 200, Aleph is 1. 501. Because the word Osher, which is from the expression of Osher, which is pleasure, is a reference to pleasure. Pleasure is the highest concept that exists by a human in terms of his faculties, in terms of his the movements of his soul. It's connected to the essence of who he is. As it says, there's nothing higher in the human experience than pleasure. So it stands above all of the processes of the human. Here we're talking about Tetzaveh 501, the etzem that stands above all the levels of Ishtalshus. Similarly, when we talk about Nefesh Adam, when we talk about the soul of man, our sages have told us that there's 5 names to the Neshama. And we have Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechida. But those are 5 names that the Neshama has. Those are not the essence of the Neshama. Those are 5 names within the Neshama, 5 levels. What's the higher? The Neshama has 5 names. But what is the Neshama? Even higher. The number of 501. Yeah. So if there's 5 names for the Neshama, so we know that what? In Ishtalshus, 10 is the highest level. On top of 10, you have each sphere, there's 10 spheres. Each sphere, if you want to extrapolate it to the fullest, you will have 10. So there's Chesed of Chesed, then there's Gvura of Chesed, Tiferes of Chesed. Each sphere then extrapolates into a full spectrum of 10. So if you have 5 names to the Neshama, those 5 levels of Neshama each have 10 spheres. And each of those 10 spheres, to be fully extrapolated, contains within it the hues of 10 spheres within 10 spheres. So you have 100 for each name of Neshama, each level of Neshama. And there's 5 levels of Neshama, so you have 500. The full expression of standing on the level of the etzem of Neshama, the essence of Neshama, above the 5 levels that the Neshama has. What is the etzem of Neshama? It's above that 500. That's 501. So again, this brings us back to the concept that 501, the word Tetzaveh, speaks to a level of etzem, of higher than name. Paragraph 6, this concept in Parshas Tetzaveh, that here we're talking about an etzem that's higher than revelation, is also alluded to in the fact that the number of the psukim in this Sedra are 101. You know, at the end of each Sedra, there's a little word that says how many psukim there are, and what is the siman for the amount of psukim? What word will be a mind jogger to be able to remind you how many psukim? It says there's 101 psukim, and the siman for that is the name of the Malach Michael, which is the numerical value of 101. The Alter Rebbe explains the Kutatera. What's the difference between the number 100 and number 101? Number 100, as we just said, expresses the complete extrapolation of Seder Shtalshus, because you have 10 spheres and 10 times 10. The number 101 speaks to the one that's above the numbers of Seder Shtalshus. As the Maharsha brings in the Gemara that speaks about you can't compare somebody who learns his learning 101 times to somebody who learns it 100 times. The Gemara there is speaking, as brought in Tanya, the Gemara there is speaking that the usual norm for reviewing your studies was 100 times. But somebody who studied 101 times has a fantastic elevation much beyond the 100 times. Why? Because the moment you jump beyond the norm, there's a much greater light. The Maharsha says, what's the illusion 100 and 101? He says 100 is expression of your nefesh ruach neshama. When you jump to 101, you're accessing a level higher than the extrapolated version of the neshama, than the revealed version of the neshama. Now you're talking to the chelek elikam yimal, to the piece of God of the neshama, the etzem of the neshama. It's higher than 100. It's 101. It's a level that stands above it. So that would tell us that also, again, the level of 101 is similar to 501. The level above Hishtalshus, etzem, which is what we're talking, is expressed by Parshas Tetzaveh, where Moshe Rabbeinu, in the expressed state, the way he is bound in this world, is not mentioned, because you're talking about his istalkus, about his elevation, which brings to an expression of a much higher level, the etzem, which is not defined, not bound by kalim, and is also to be found here in this world. That's why in the parsha it speaks about that level, the Adar, Tetzaveh, and so on. Paragraph 7, according to what he explained before about Gematrias, we can also explain that this concept about Moshe, that we're talking about his essence higher than the level of shame, is also why it's only alluded to in the Gematria, and also why it's only alluded to in the number of psukim, only in the numerology, which is really the last level of expression of something. Why? Because here we're talking about etzem, about essence that's higher than revelation. That's why it expresses this illusion, this remez is expressed in a place which is not really revelation. In the last level, which Gematria is not really revelation, it doesn't say it's a number, it's a cold number. It's only if you know behind the scenes what that number expresses, does it say something. Because here we're talking about the fact that there's the expression of something higher than definition. So anything we would say to define it wouldn't be a vessel to define it. So how do we define it? We define it by a remez, by an illusion of numbers, which doesn't really express anything. But because it doesn't express anything, it doesn't have to express anything. It can be a hiding spot for something that's beyond expression. And therefore, dafka in the numerology here, we get this allusion to talking about the etzem, the 501, the one above the 500 and the 101 in the number of psukim. And this is how Moshe Rabbeinu's presence is so much to be found in Parshas Tetzaveh. All the while we're talking about an allusion to his istalkos, to his passing.